A tenant in Alabama tried to burn down his landlord's house with a can of gasoline, but the landlord was told by police that he couldn't immediately evict him. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article and story for you today, and it's coming out of Alabama. Now, obviously, Alabama is not one of the states that I normally cover, but interesting stuff does occur there from time to time, and this story here is one of the most interesting. So apparently, a landlord had a tenant in one of his properties who got into a domestic dispute with his partner and basically was going to burn the place down, right? Sprayed gasoline and stuff all over the house. And well, fortunately, the place didn't burn, but the person was arrested and the landlord wanted to move to immediately evict the tenant, and then found out that, hey, according to the state's eviction law, it doesn't matter if a crime has occurred on the property or not. You can't get the tenant out of there immediately, okay? You have to wait 7 days, and that's crazy, okay? Just imagine if this tenant gets, bonded out of jail and they come back to the house and then they burn it down, knowing that you could have had this tenant locked out, could have had them evicted, but the state law says, oh no, doesn't matter. So this is an issue that could be a big problem for landlords throughout the entire country. And I'm sure that in places that are much more progressive, much more left-leaning than Alabama, that they probably even have more than 7 days that they have to wait before they're able to finally evict the tenant, even one that's a threat to the property, okay? Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What do you think of a landlord not being able to immediately evict a tenant who basically was spraying gasoline around the house and threatening to burn it down? Do you think this is good or bad? Do you think it would be good if states or cities had laws in place that would allow a landlord to immediately evict in, certain circumstances? I do, okay? I think that there's no way that anybody should be allowed back in the house, especially if they've committed certain crimes, okay? It's insane, and yet our legal system doesn't really think of situations like this, but they do occur, and this story is an example of that. So let's get into it. This story is coming from WAAYTV.com, and it says, North Alabama landlord must wait to evict tenant even after tenant's alleged arson attempt. And it has a picture here of a red gas can and a blue chair sitting outside of the rental property. And there's a video along with this story, so let's get into the video first.
There's a legal process in order to evict a tenant. The landlord can't just post an eviction notice on the door and change the locks. There's this timeline they have to follow. And it doesn't matter why someone is being evicted. Even if it's for criminal activity, the timeline remains the same.
All right, so you saw that video. Now let's get into the article. A North Alabama landlord is being told he can't immediately evict his tenant, even after the tenant was arrested for an attempted arson at the rented property. Yazair Sanders has been in the Madison County Jail since Monday when he was arrested for allegedly pouring gasoline all over himself and his wife during a domestic dispute. After Sanders' arrest, the property owner boarded up the house and placed an eviction notice on the front door. However, police told him he had to let the tenants back in, as there's a legal process that landlords must go through in order to evict a tenant. The eviction process remains the same, no matter the reason someone is being evicted. Yeah, and this is a point that is true throughout the entire country, okay? No matter what the tenant does to the property, no matter what happens, you still have to go through the same eviction process. Now, I think there is an exception where the house is unsafe and unlivable, and maybe the landlord could use that argument right there and say, hey, because of this gasoline in there, it's such a fire hazard, and the fumes and everything in it are so bad that I cannot allow you back in the house because it's a safety issue, okay? Now, if that was what the landlord was doing, then maybe he would have been able to keep these people out of being able to come back into the property, okay? It's kind of like when a hurricane hits a house and, it just basically destroys the structure, makes it so that, just by going inside, you risk your life. Well, the landlord can then say, hey, no, you cannot come back in here. But in this case, it doesn't sound like that is exactly what happened, okay? If it's a meth lab or murder or drug activity or discharge a firearm not in self-defense, it's still 7 business days. There's no shortening of that time period for the dangers that the tenant might pose to either other residents or management, explained Huntsville attorney Sarah Taggart, who specializes in landlord-tenant law. She said these laws are clearly spelled out in the Landlord-Tenant Act in the property section of the Alabama Code. The time period for issuing an eviction notice is 7 business days, no matter what. Once the 7-day notice period is up, the landlord can file a legal action in the court system. So yeah, they have 7 days to file this eviction, no matter what happened. Literally, like this attorney just said, your tenant could have murdered someone in the property. Gotta wait 7 days. I mean, this is ridiculous, okay? This kind of law needs to be changed, at least shortened for extreme circumstances. Now, I understand on the other part, right? The situation in this landlord's case in particular had the tenant and their partner who got into a domestic dispute. So by the landlord evicting them, right? Now the partner who is the victim doesn't have a place to live either. Okay, so that's a big issue. But at the same time, the property owner has to look out for the fact that, hey, this tenant is probably going to bond out of jail, and they've already, started the process of destroying the property, of burning the property down. Now, just to mitigate your own risk, you have to get these people out. And maybe I would be like, as the landlord, I'd be like, hey, to the victim, to the domestic violence victim, I'd be like, hey, I'll put you up in a hotel. I'll let you go in there, get all of your stuff out of the property, right? And I'll put you up in a hotel, but I can't have you staying in here anymore. And I don't want your partner or your spouse or whatever to come back here and cause any more damage, so you both have got to go. That's what I would do. I mean, I'd at least give them the option of going in there and getting their property and, being able to clear them out of there. And then I'd be like, hey, listen, the place is still a fire hazard, okay? There's gasoline fumes, and the fumes is all you need in order to start that fire, even if it was spilled, hours or days ago. So this is a big liability issue, and I just wouldn't want to have to deal with that guy coming back and then, let me bust out the gasoline again and burn this place this time. Nope, not gonna happen, okay? But I do understand from the victim standpoint that, hey, you don't want to lose your home at this moment, okay? And it's a very tough situation to have to deal with. Anyway, let's continue. The eviction process itself, once it's in the court system, it's identical, said Taggart. It doesn't matter if it's non-payment. It doesn't matter if it's unauthorized animal. It doesn't matter if it's cooking meth. The eviction process in the court system runs exactly the same. This isn't the same in every state. For example, Tennessee only has a 3-day notice for evicting tenants for dangerous or criminal reasons. The homeowner, Howard Ross, wishes that was the case in Alabama, as he is about to start a lengthy battle to evict his arrested tenant. We could be here 3, maybe 4 months, and in the meantime, it's not so much a problem that they're not paying rent, but I'm deathly afraid that this gentleman is going to come out and try to burn his wife up again, said Ross. He said the house still reeks of gasoline, but he has unlocked the doors, and his tenants are allowed back in the house. So yeah, this landlord, he's complying with the law, okay? And like he said, this isn't an issue of them not paying rent. This is more a liability issue and a worry of, hey, we've got, insane criminal action going on that not only threatens, one of the tenants of the house, but also threatens the house itself, the property itself. I mean, how are you going to report that to your insurance company? We had an arsonist who, he spilled gasoline all over the house, and, I just let him back in right afterwards, and then he burned the place down. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know, how you could explain that. But, the worst thing is that the landlord is caught up in this ridiculous mess with this obviously very dangerous tenant. It's hard being a tenant or a landlord to tenants who are, lower income. And that's what this sounds like right here, okay? It is hard because sometimes, there is some crazy situations that occur and crazy activities that occur there that a lot of people just don't want to deal with. And this is one of those situations right there.